I've been an athlete my entire life. I've been a strength coach for 20 years. I was a gymnast for 20 years. I was a weightlifter for 17. I was a bobsledder for 10 years, and I threw some Highland Games. So I've done a lot of power sports, right? I've also learned a lot the hard way about what not to do and what things I was missing in my training that were a detriment both to my body and to my performance. My body was not functioning. It took me 30 minutes to stand up straight in the morning. I had back and hip, and I was destroyed. What I've done over the last few years is understand I could rebuild and not live that way anymore. And at 42 almost, I feel better than I did at 21. And I perform better, my body works better, and I'm back to lifting heavy, I'm back to doing the things I love. And what's so cool about it is the stuff that we're gonna do today is basically building pieces of building that physical foundation. So if you think about that pyramid of training where your GPP is generally at the bottom and then you work your way up, this surrounds your pyramid. So the stuff we're doing today is the foundation of human movement. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to train your body to work like a human body should work. Training, as many of you know, shuts areas of our body down. And things happen, sometimes that leads to injury or at least some chronic pain. We seek out help, we go to chiropractic, we go to PT, we do all these things, and sometimes we don't make progress. So what we're gonna access today is we're gonna talk about feet, we're gonna talk about the hip, we're gonna talk about the core, we're gonna talk about the shoulder. So hopefully, I'm gonna be quick. We're gonna try to get to all that stuff. But those are areas that are super shut down on most people, and especially athletes, but they're also areas that are really hard to target. And so I'm going to show you today things that I have found that work for everybody, and we'll go from there. Sound cool? Yeah. All right, so find just a little bit of space. But the very first step towards building a body that has the structural integrity and the framework to support training is finding proper alignment. It doesn't mean that other positions are bad. There is no bad position. Positions are poor when you don't have control of that position and when you're loading a position, because it's going to be more optimal biomechanically to be in a better position, right? It doesn't mean the others can't work, especially if you build strength there. But trying to go on either side of what ideal alignment is, you have to know what this is first, and then you can build the rest. Because most athletes aren't in great position. Most people aren't in great position, okay? So what we're gonna do is find an ideal posture position. It doesn't mean you have to be here all the time. I just need you to be able to find it. Okay, so march in place and then let your feet settle. The reason I do that is that helps get your feet right under your hips, which is where we want them just to start this movement. We're going to try to line up the pieces of our body to be nicely stacked on top of one another. So what you're going to do is we're going to go from the feet up. I want you to lift one toe at a time. Some of you will feel like that shifted your hips back over your heels, because some of us tend to stand forward, okay? We're gonna come back over our heels just to get nice and centered. Then I want you to take the big bone of your big toe, not the big toe itself, and push that into the floor. Push your big bone of your pinky toe into the floor, and then your heels into the floor. And automatically you should feel a little bit more connected to the ground, a little bit more grounded. We want to be connected to the ground. The ground is the only place we can apply force. If we don't know how to connect to the ground, whatever we're doing, moving around, is not going to be as efficient, right? Now, in between those points, I want you to think about tenting the arch of your foot. And if anyone wants to ask me about this later, because I know this is complex, we can talk about it. But that's just one of my first pieces. And what you'll feel is that just sort of kind of grabs the ground, gets you set, okay? Coming up, front side of the pelvis, you're going to try to actively pull it up toward the rib cage. So we want to use our deep core, very low level, and then glutes should be relaxed. Okay? From there, we're going to set our shoulders. Most of us are in this kind of sympathetic position where we do all of this stuff. We need to get relaxed. We need to be able to find that. So you're going to take your arms out. We're going to turn the thumbs as far back as you can. You should feel like it opens your chest. Most of us also then do this. So what I want you to do while you're holding your arms there, take a nice deep breath in, and as you breathe out, allow the rib cage to settle. And then when you're there, we're going to keep your shoulders in position, keep your ribs in position, and just turn your hands back to face you. You can let them relax as long as you don't lose shoulder position. And then last piece is going long through the back side of the neck, bringing the head in line with the torso. It's going to feel very awkward. To get settled in this position, just start to shift and march in place. But what we did is we are aligning the rib cage and the pelvis. So you may have heard about trying to create this alignment here so that the core can fire. That's going to be super important for everything. But the problem is, most of us, when we go to squat, when we go to do stuff, we get out of that. This should not be used to hold your rib cage in place. Right. So the next two things I want to do are 2 breath exercises. I like to use a birthday candle breath, and I like to use a balloon breath. And I could do a whole week on breathing, so we're not going to get super deep into it, but 2 very easy ways to learn for yourself and to teach somebody else are the birthday candle breath and the balloon breath, because most people have blown out birthday candles, most people have blown up a balloon. So what you're going to do is put your hands on your rib cage, and we're going to do the birthday candle breath first. Imagine you have 100 birthday candles that you have to breathe out all at the same time. So it's fast and it's very forceful, right? So you're going to breath in. Where did those ribs go? The other one that I like to use, and we're going to use it in one of our core movements today, is a balloon breath. So same idea, but you're going to breathe in, and then as you breathe out, and try to breathe all of that air out. So same thing, different way to get there, right? So it just depends on what you're doing. But if I'm going to go into a squat, I want to get set first. So it's and then behind it without losing that position. So that's a real quick way because it's sympathetic and it also just sort of gets that set, and then you can get behind it and do whatever it is you need to do, right? And then there's not a lot of thought involved. I'm not trying to go, oh, where's my rib cage? Where's my pelvis? It's just ready. Cool? All right, so let's hit core a little bit. Oh, no, sorry, let's do feet. Your foot has a lot of muscles in it and a lot of joints. And we want to know how to use that, right? We want to know how to connect to the ground. So again, when you work with groups, or if you don't have a huge background in strength and conditioning, you don't want to get into all of these complex ways to do things. You want things that are going to be easy, simple, and quick, especially if you're working with a big group of people, right? But you want it to be effective. But what you're going to do is grab that ground with the foot, right? And then what you're going to do is you're going to push with your right big toe, and you're going to try to push yourself to the left. So if you push, if I'm using my right leg and I push, it moves me over, right? I didn't load, go, etc. So if we're talking change of direction, this makes you fast, right? Learning how to navigate in your foot what needs to happen, you can go anywhere you want to go. But so just having that sense of getting there, and then you can start doing drills, right? So lots of ways to start using this. I won't go into them because I want to give you guys more stuff today, but that at least gets you started in that process. Most people who do balance work, where are we? Flat foot. Where are we when we're on the field? Speed. Right? How many people do balance work off of your heel on the ball of your foot? Almost nobody. So guaranteed, when you are sprinting, when you're cutting, when you're moving, when you're doing anything interacting and anything athletic, you're not on your heels. So if you don't have control of what that ankle should do, you're going to lose time. You're going to lose performance. You're going to roll an ankle. So all kinds of things that are going to happen because we don't have that control. So here's what you're going to do. Grab a partner or grab a wall, just something you can hold on to. Put your feet. So one person is working. The other person is there for balance so that you can do one at a time. The person that's working, put your feet completely all the way together. And you're going to want somebody for balance, I promise. You're going to Go up into a calf raise. Don't go yet. Let me talk you through it quick. You're going to go up into a calf raise as high as you can. Now, when I come up into a calf raise, what normally happens for most people? Right? They supinate, right? The ankles come apart. And of course, I'm exaggerating it, but this is what happens. And even people who think they're aligned are here. I want you here. Okay? So I want this area of your foot right in that arch glued together. Then, so once you come as high as you can, keeping that arch where it is, take the weight onto one foot, then slowly come down. And just do one on each side. So that was quick, and I of course want to go around and fix everybody. But the idea is you're trying to lift basically the outside edge of your heel that keeps you on that big toe. Do you know what your big toe connects to? Your glute. So when you are rolling out, you're not connecting to your glute as efficiently as you could. You think we want to use our glutes in every single possible thing we do? Yes, right? So we want to give ourselves the most advantageous position to do that. Okay? Now I know I had you go super high, but I want control through that whole range. Obviously, you're not going to be running that high on the ball of your foot. In fact, most of us are going to have our heels almost barely touching the ground, right? But I want strength through that entire range. And you can also do balance work where your heel is just floating, and then you're able to balance. And what you're going to find is you get here first, and it's like this. I had both ankles surgically altered. I had one reconstructed, blew it out again. I mean, my ankles are destroyed, but I can do almost anything I want to do. I can't cut because I have no ligaments on either side, but I have no reason to do anything else about it because I can control it with what I do. So, because I have the strength. And ideally, you should be able to do a single leg calf raise without falling all over the place, all the way up and all the way down. So if you can keep that, then you know you're doing pretty well. Okay? All right, so let's move on. So let's move up the chain to the glutes. Okay? Glutes are an interesting thing. Most people have heard about the fact that we have lazy glutes, but then what do we do to fix it? We think, oh, I just have to squeeze my glutes when I train. But when you're sprinting, can you actually tell yourself to use your glute? Not going to happen. So if that's the way that you're trying to teach yourself to use your glute, it's never going to transfer. This stuff should be just unconscious or subconscious, whatever it's going to be, right? It just should be automatic. I shouldn't have to tell myself for a certain body part to work, but I want it to fire. So then what do? Sometimes it's just like turning on a light switch. You know, some people talk about, oh, well, that's because that area is weak and I need to work on it. That's not always the case. It doesn't matter if I have a 100-watt bulb. If the light switch isn't on, the light's not going to be bright, right? It's just not going to work. It doesn't matter. The light's not broken. I don't need a bigger wattage. I don't need more strength. I have a couple foundation glute movements. We're going to do 2 of them. So what you're going to do is get into a split stance. You've got probably 90% of your weight on your front leg. This is going to be your working leg. Okay, back leg, you're up on your toe. From here, I want so that your rib cage and your pelvis are lined up. We're going to hip hinge on our front leg, which is not going forward, right? It's sending the hips back. So I want you to load this front glute, keeping this alignment so I'm not dropping into an arch and I'm not rounding. I want a nice loaded position. From here, you're going to then, this is going to be individual, you're going to play with your movement, turn, whatever you need to do, play with it until you feel that muscle in your deep glute fire. Once it's there, stay there. How we doing? Finding it? That glute screaming at you yet? Okay, make sure you're hinged. Now, in that position, don't lose that feeling, and you're going to take your arms and draw half of the necks from high to low. High on one side, low to the other. Allow the shoulders to turn. That glute should be on fire. Quad should not be working as much. It should be all glute. And then relax. How's that glute feel? Did you have to squeeze it? No. We just turned it on, active, right? It's position. I got you in a right position, and then the oscillation helps your body understand how to stabilize and how to start creating that connection and then transferring it, right? So that's a starting point. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff we can do from there, but this alone makes a big difference, okay? Do the other side. Front foot. Make sure we get that candle breath. Hinge. Once you're there, oscillate 10 each direction. So now we've got the glute on. So find your same starting position. Pull up on that pelvis if you need to. Rib cage down. Hinge. And then just find the position where that glute's on. If your feet aren't far enough apart to split squat yet, then just move the back foot so that you keep that glute on in the front. Now, here's what you're going to do. Don't change your position. Just start bending both knees and keep that glute on as you squat. And as you drive up, push from that point right up into your torso. And then do 3. Control, control, control. Right? So then try the other side. Position first. That's alignment. Activate second. Integrate third. So the idea is understanding where that position is that's going to allow you to use your glute more efficiently. So finding that position and then getting yourself into something like this that helps you turn that on automatically. It's not about squeezing your glute. It's got to just turn on. Then you can start using it, and then it's going to transfer into everything else you do, right? Cool? So let's do core. This is the fun one. Have a seat. And you're going to leave your feet out in front of you. Knees are bent. When you sit down, you're on the bones of your pelvis, right? So most of us kind of sit up straight for the most part. What I want is for you to scoop and rock back so you're on the soft part of your glute. Make sense? So you don't have to lean too much. It's just in the pelvis. So you're on the soft part of your glute. You should still have a soft part of your glute because you should be able to let it go. Focus on now I want to try to get into posterior tilt. And the reason we're doing this is that, as Mike mentioned yesterday, most people are in anterior tilt and don't have good control into posterior. This does not mean that we're going to then use posterior tilt in squatting necessarily, but if I can't get into posterior tilt, trying to stay in neutral is going to be tough. So I want you to now in this position think about scooping your tailbone more without leaning more. So it just happens in the pelvis. Arms out in front, palms are up. I'm going to move from here, roll, and lean a little bit farther back. Make sure you're still scooping, and then pause. We're not done yet. So now you're going to reach your arms to the ceiling. Now, take them out to the side. Again, shoulders out of the ears. Back to the ceiling. And sit. How many of you do core work? This is your foundation. This happens in your warm-up. It can certainly be a core training movement later in your workout as well. When I do it in the beginning, this is my activation. This just kind of gets us going, and it's going to be individual. When I program this stuff, my rep range is 2 to 15. Once you get to 15, we try to advance the exercise unless you're at my top level, in which case then you get your 15 in, and that's your part of your warm-up for the day, right? But I don't want fatigue, I just want activation. Make sense? So it's always going to be based on the person, and today it might be 2, tomorrow it might be 5, and then the next day it might be 4. So it just depends on where you are that day, right? But this is an excellent way to try to get that integrity here. And again, you didn't have to think about using your core and your core turned on, right? It's automatic. That's what should happen. I shouldn't have to just be able to do a sit-up or a core movement to feel my core. I should be able to get my core active by putting myself in a position and then challenging it. and that does that, right? For those of you who might have felt hip flexors, because there certainly are, I'm sure, maybe some, there are a couple cues I use. You can either push with your heels, which helps open the front side, plus if I'm engaging my posterior chain, sometimes the hip flexors will let go. The hip flexor kick in is an indication that your core is not active and you're not making that connection. So sometimes it's just resetting your position. Sometimes it's that you didn't get enough posterior tilt, right? Remember, we're not loading the spine. So going into posterior tilt unloaded is okay. Your spine moves that way. We should get strong there, right? So the other thing you can do is rotate your knees out. Sometimes that'll help get rid of that as well, okay? The other cue is all really focusing on the position of that pelvis. This is the other core movement I use. I'm going to show you first, and then I'll talk you guys through it. There are 3 levels to it. Level 1, lie on your back in 90-90. So knees are 90, hips are 90. My left hand goes on my right knee. Here's where I'm going to use my balloon breath. I'm going to breathe in, and as I breathe out my balloon breath, I'm going to try to drive my knee to my chest. I'm going to stop it with my hand, but remember, trying to teach activation is slow and controlled, so it's not a jerk motion, it's a ramp up. So it's a dimmer switch on and a dimmer switch off. So I'm going to breathe in, and as I breathe out, I slowly start to push these together. I ramp it up, and as my breath finishes, I ramp back down. Okay? That's level 1. Level 2, same start position here. This arm is still going to be here. This arm comes up, and I'm going to crunch. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Breathe in, breathe out, push. Level 3, start here, breathe in, breathe out and push. Okay? So we're going to start at level 1. Lie on your back. Head is relaxed on the floor. Forceful breath, forceful push. So that's level 1. That's my intro. Let's try level 2. Okay, opposite arm in the air and crunch. Make sure the shoulders are off the floor. Take a breath. Push, 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 push. If you're feeling hip flexor, try to scoop your pelvis a little bit and hold that position. Breathe out and push and extend, reach, get long. Don't lose your torso position. Make sure your push is holding you there. And then reset. Opposite side. One more. Breathe in, breathe out and push, and reach, get long, and relax. Again, how many of you guys do core work? This allows you to reinforce that nice position of integrity while getting it super active. I didn't have to tell you what was working, right? So even if you had no experience in fitness, if you came in and did that, you would know what was working. When we do this, it happens to get you ready for training. It prepares the body, and it helps build that foundation. Just do it in your warm-up. And spend a little extra time, do a couple extra reps, regress, right? Don't just go to level 3 all the time just because you've always done level 3. If level 3 is not appropriate that day, take it back down. The whole purpose of it is to get your body working, right? Make sense? I'll be here all day. I appreciate it.